thought I'd start by asking what you've been up to recently, because I know you're always into something interesting. So,
Well, yeah, recently I've just completed an academic paper at Oxford University regarding prehistory, which allowed me access to some of Oxford's, finest libraries. So I've been sort of literally downloading lots of information and found a few real gems for the next book on, on our ancestors, really. So I'm looking forward to kind of researching. I've been to Egypt since I saw you last,
Mm.
and I've been to Malta,
Oh,
and I'm to Ireland for the summer solstice. So
brilliant.
out and about and keeping out of trouble, hopefully.
well, we try.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I'm Crete bound next year, so I'm going to Crete. I was about Crete, so next year. So
Wow,
definitely
lovely.
get over there. Yeah.
see the labyrinth.
Labyrinths of caves again. Amazing. Yeah, we've got some
Right.
questions later on for you because we've got some. Now I've got my singing bowl. We've did a few tests on it. It's fantastic. Because we had, I've also in your book, me and Lee was talking yesterday, and he came up with some, which I thought was fascinating. And I thought, yeah, I thought about it. It makes sense. Where the people are digging these people up, Neolithic man or whatever, and they find them, the swords or whatever. Also bowls with them. I thought, well, bowls, but then we thought, well, could they be singing bowls? Why not food bowls? Like they get the bowls now, for their frequency, you know, possible they could be, was talking about, weren't we? It's possible. Why have bowls for food? Because, well, in the afterlife, but
Hmm.
different aspects there, but again, possible.
Yeah, some of the early Neolithic pottery, because as part of the prehistoric course at Oxford, we could handle pottery,
Yeah,
rather than just see it. And some of it is very, very ornate, which, if you've just got a food bowl, if you've just got a plate, it's a practical thing.
Yeah.
Some of these bowls, and they are very smooth on the inside because they're very, almost like finely polished as
yeah.
well.
That's what singing bowls are, aren't they? They were kind of
Yeah.
polished inside. Possible, isn't it? Yeah.
Like I
Makes
say,
sense, doesn't it? Makes sense, doesn't it?
it just seems strange that you'd bury them with all these trinkets, obviously for the afterlife if you want, and sword and shield. We understand that, buried on your shield, but then to find a bowl, it just seems a bit. No knife and fork. It's just a bowl.
No napkins, or just
But
a
obviously, I
bowl.
mean, obviously some of them are bowls, aren't they? But I don't know.
Some of them are bowls, which I agree with, and they have been tested because they've left some residue inside them. So some of the taller ones, known as like the beakers, yeah,
Yeah.
which you get in burials, they had hallucinogenics in and
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the kind of more rounder, more kind of like Peterborough ware, I think that could be open to interpretation, like both you and Andy have suggested
Yeah,
with sink
yeah,
bowls. Why not?
yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So, should we get into the book then?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Go on then. Fire away.
yeah. The book, absolutely fascinating, Marie. Where can I start? Where can I start? Just absolutely amazing. I mean,
Well, should we get Maria to give us an overview for those who don't know
yeah. I
about it?
mean, why don't we find any of this information in the libraries, then, Maria? Why has it been kind of put back and or hidden or whatever? Or I mean, you found it all and you put it all together in an amazing book. But why isn't this open to everybody? Why isn't this on online or in the library where you can pull a book out and it's there?
Yeah, well, the book, Druidic Soul Star Astrology, is a
Mm.
kind of combination of ancient astrological attributes to planets and to countries. So that was drawn from Claudius Ptolemy. And Claudius Ptolemy wrote a book at the turn of like 1 AD called Tetrabiblos. And in Tetrabiblos, he said this country is ruled by this planet and this planet means this. And that's what all astrologers today have drawn upon, Claudius Ptolemy in Tetrabiblos. And he was in an Egyptian, where he was living in Egypt, and he probably studied at the great library called the Alexandrian Library. So that's where I drew a lot of inspiration from, very traditional astrology. And the other side of the book was I was at an ancient site near Stonehenge called the Codford Circle, which was known to be a kind of centre for the Druids. And when I was there, I got inspired by a kind of energy of the kind of sacred site to study for this book. So it draws upon different kind of cultures, and I put it all together. So yeah, so it's quite unique, and a friend and I are working on software at the moment so that you can instantly have it on software, so that you don't have to kind of draw any charts out or anything. It's instantly in front of you with an interpretation as well.
Brilliant.
Well, that would be fantastic because
Definitely,
you know
yeah.
this day and
Definitely,
age,
yeah.
everybody wants everything instantly, don't they? Yes,
Yeah.
or yesterday. So
Yeah.
something like that will really
Yeah, definitely.
help
Yeah.
people. I mean, I like it because it's not you saying, and that's not no disrespect. It's not like you say, you know, like you get these psychics saying, or like reading cards and saying, no, but it's their interpretation. But this is an ancient thing. This is, you know, it's not you saying this. It's
You're just bringing the information
yeah,
out,
you're
Maria.
giving,
Yeah,
and I
that's what
find
you're
that
doing.
you know unique, if you like, and you know that's more interesting to me that these people are doing that. But when we talk about this astrology and you know telling the future, past, whatever, who was getting this information? Was it just the priestly classes, or was this open to every man in that day?
Probably when Ptolemy was writing his book Tetrabiblos. I mean, that is the Bible for all astrologers. That's where all the attributes of the planets have come down to us from time, apart from some from ancient Egypt and Sumer. So it was probably just the priesthood and the very learned scholars types of their era. So it wouldn't have been open to everyone. In fact, ancient astrology wasn't even for people. I mean, today we have our own charts done, we know our own sun sign, etc. But all of those millennia ago, it was just for the royals. It was for the ruling elite, and they used to plan wars. They used to plan, you know, the birth of their child. It was very elitist in ancient Egypt and Sumer. So I think, yeah, it wasn't open to everybody.
Would you say that still goes on today?
Well, I mean, even when we go to our own royal family and look at the historical influences, for example, of Queen Elizabeth I, everybody knows what she looks like, you know, we can all instantly know her. Well, she had her own astrologer called Dr. John Dee. So Dr. John Dee was a mathematician, occultist, and he was working for Queen Elizabeth I. And I suspect very strongly they planned a lot of things together by using ancient occult law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be a normal Russell Grant, would it? Not for them lot, anyway. So, they want somebody with a bit of the old know-how, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, if you look at what Dee got involved in and his influence on the empire and all the rest of what goes on, I mean, could you do that on your own?
Yeah.
You know, was he drawing from something? I guess. You know,
magic. It's all magic.
Well, that's what he said, didn't it?
It's all magic. Yeah.
So,
it's all energy.
You had a question about the book?
Yeah, I found there's one. I mean, the book was fantastic, Maria. I mean, it's a fantastic book. There's one part in there where I think we've talked about before. One part of the book, he was on about water, which has memory and life. Water is conscious. I mean, you got like Stonehenge. There's huge vortices and water below. That's where they draw up the power, the energy. And it fascinates you about the water having memory. Yeah, I mean, how big a memory are we saying here? Are we going thousands of years here for this energy under these sacred sites?
Yeah, well, you see, with sacred sites being so intimately associated with deep underground water, and homeopaths have told us for decades that water has memory, and that we have Emoto's teachings, etc. So so really the water deep below the ground can, I believe and propose, has a very strong memory. So it could remember the kind of whole history of Stonehenge could be encoded into the water. So really, when we look at these ancient sites, they could be like Akashic records for the ancient past and indeed the present. Because I do think ancient sites recognize your energy field if you keep going back and back and back.
Right. So you can really just go back and maybe if you know what you're doing, then you can actually draw on that and bring up them memories or the energy up to you.
Yeah, because when I've taken people around places like Avebury and Stonehenge, and we had a trip round there ourselves, it's quite interesting to know that some people really do, when they buy certain stones, repeat similar stories, not identical, but very similar. And you're thinking, wow, you know, is it the kind of energy field of the stone? Is it the energy field of the deep underground water? It's probably a combination of both. And sometimes there's that kind of connection that people make and reveal, you know, aspects of our long lost history.
Let's give us an example of one of those stories.
Well, for example, there was a lady from Australia, and she was just walking around Avebury. I was her guide for the day, you know, so we were just kind of very slow pace, not like with a kind of fast pace tour. And she went to one stone and said she felt that there was a lady associated to it, and the lady had like thick brown hair, with a kind of funny kind of plait or something down sort of one side, which is quite a distinctive way of describing a woman, you know, an unusual plait or braid. And she was from Australia, and it must have been about 2 to 3 years later. It was quite some time had elapsed, and I was taking another lady around, and she was from Japan, you know, and she was a very petite Japanese lady, very sensitive. And she stopped by the stone, but a little bit more in front of it, not so close as the Australian lady, and came out with something very similar, that there was this woman, and she had a kind of look down one side that it looked like it was braided, and she had thick brown hair. She got the height of her. She said, I think she's around sort of 5 feet 4 inches. And I sense that she is from a long time ago, and I think she's associated with Avebury when it was back in the day, you know, 4,500 years ago, she felt. So even though the Japanese lady got more detail, the beginning was just almost identical.
Yeah. And do we have any, you know, notion of who that lady that we're talking about is?
No, I mean, there's no burials really at Avebury, and the only burial that did occur was like in the Henge Bank at the far end, and it was a short lady. She was sort of about 5 feet, just 5 feet tall, and she's called the Dwarf of Avebury, but she wasn't a dwarf, so I don't know why you get you go online and they say there's a dwarf buried in the Henge Bank, and it isn't at all. That's the only burial known, but yeah, I think that was the kind of combination of the stone's energies and the sensitivity of
almost like the memories trapped in the energy field, if you like, and people step into it and somehow plays in their mind. You know, like putting a video. People won't even know what videos are now, but putting like a video in a VHS, in a VHS machine.
You won't know what
you know what I mean? So you can, it's like replaying that memory on there. Do you think? Do you find that women are more sensitive than men, or?
I think women generally are, but you get a lot of, you know, sensitive guys as well that I've taken round. So I think, you know, especially these days with people becoming more awake and more aware and working with their own sensitive sides, be that, you know, a male or a female, then yes, you know, I think generally speaking, there's been a huge wave of people becoming switched on and aware. I don't know if you've recognised that in your neck of the woods, so to speak.
Well, no, not down either.
No, I mean not personally, but
well, again, I my site, there has been a drip. It's not an outpour, Marie, is it? It's just a constant drip. Some people awake and
I think you're right. I think there is.
It's a frequency change. There's been a frequency change for many years,
I think
it's the people who's picking it up.
That stiff upper lip kind of thing, which we've always, that mentality that we've always had, I think that is fading away gradually. So, you know, maybe we are sort of reclaiming some of our history, you know, our ancient past. And where do we? Because obviously you brought up water, so it made me wonder. But where do we stand on druids and river goddesses?
Well, you see, at the end of the Bronze Age, you know, let's say we're on a timeline, this is an orthodox timeline that archaeologists would use, and we're about sort of 750 BC. The strange thing was, around about that time, and a little bit before as well, there was a climatic change, yeah? It was getting colder, and probably crops were failing. And the people that built the stone circles abandoned them all. They literally never went back to them after about 1000 BC, okay? Then around about 750 BC, there was a culture, the Druid culture came into being in the Iron Age. And because it was so wet and soggy and it was cold, cold winters, they went to higher ground and built ceremonial sites, which are wrongly called hill forts, because a lot of them are non-defensive, actually. Some are defensive, but they started off as a ceremonial site. And then when the Romans came, around about, 40 up to 43 AD, they were fortified more, but they were ceremonial centres. So I think, it's really interesting to know that what we're going through today with climate disturbance and climatic change is exactly what the megalithic people went through, and the Druid people.
So maybe there is some correlation between, I don't know if you want to call it knowledge, but when the weather changes, maybe we do hit another frequency or whatever, and maybe we fall into particular patterns, and I think that reoccurs. Was that sort of evident across the globe, or is it
Across Europe? Now they used to think it was because of a volcano going off in Greece, Santorini. That was the culprit. Now with advanced science and DNA testing and testing particles, they can actually tell what volcano and where it was, and it was from Iceland. And when Iceland erupted at the turn of the Bronze into the Iron Age, it created a nuclear winter. I mean, it was devastating for the people at that time. And again, volcanoes are becoming quite active.
Yeah. Again, yeah,
at this time of the year. So we could all be on the brink of change. And I think you've kind of resonated with something what I feel. I really do feel that what Gaia does, what she changes our consciousness.
Yes, has to.
Because we have to adapt to the earth changes, the changes in energies, and as Andy's described, in frequencies.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to change. You're either going to go with it or you're going to get left behind, and it's up to you what you want to do.
You definitely can't stand still, can you?
You can't stand still.
Volcanoes going off.
Everything's movement. You can't stand still.
I do worry. I mean, I know people have a big, nuclear problem. Like, think this is going to happen, nuclear war, nuclear war. Pandemic, or whatever catastrophe it's going to be. I really do worry about the human. I don't think we'll go extinct because there's too many of us. There's always going to be isolated pockets somewhere that will thrive, and maybe start over again. But I really do worry about what will happen in them times, because if it does happen, or maybe not if, but when, I just don't think we're anywhere near ready for it. I think we've moved so far away from it now, and this might be why they're trying to bring robots in and stuff like that, because maybe they can weather it better than us.
That's no difference. It doesn't matter. Robots are not. They're not going to make it either. Because
I think they'll be able to weather it slightly better than humans. But
no. Again, it's going to happen. People think they're going to go underground and they're safe. They're not safe underground. I think the haven under. No, nothing's going to be safe. It's going to be complete change, complete switch, and that's it.
And what the the Iron Age people had to endure was the lack of crops. We have a lot of people on the planet, so you've got to feed a lot of people, and they had to change their farming techniques, everything, to adapt to that big climatic change. So I feel that at the Druid time, because it was wetter, it was colder, they started a water cult, like you mentioned, Lee. So they would deposit in like river goddesses. The water became very, very important to them, because they were probably trying to apply old esoteric law to, control and appease the water, which to some degree they did, because the climate started to get a little bit better. So we could face that, like I said, at any one time.
I think water is the key to a lot of this.
Yeah, again, I understand the changes of past history, and some that hasn't been said, but I think now the time is this isn't going to be a change. It's going to be a good night. To me, it's going to be we'll be born on another planet, another place. I think we're on borrowed time. We've been on borrowed time for so long, and it's but. As you know, we can't die. We just go on somewhere else to another classroom, and we learn from there. So
Do we
Why
get?
worry?
I mean, obviously.
Ignore the fear porn. Just live day by day.
Mm.
Enjoy it.
Well, do you get a sense that the Druids predicted what was about to happen, or do you think they was reacting?
Well, I think they must have felt something was coming because, like I said, they abandoned all of the low ground. They abandoned the previous culture's stone circles, which, must have been, they're so big, they're so huge, but they suddenly never went there again. It's almost like they felt they had to do something very, very different to survive, and they did. And they had a beautiful culture as much as the megalithic culture. Anyway, they just did things slightly differently. But most of the DNA tests that have been done from the kind of Bronze Age do say that we're very mixed Europeans.
Yeah.
And that the early ancient Britons, of which I've spoken about on your show before, which were the elongated, long-skulled people of Stonehenge, that they were the kind of ancient Britons. Compared to the kind of more Europeans that we have in the kind of Druidic period. No Brexit there.
Nope. No. Yeah, again, it's fascinating. The book, I loved your book, and again, it's not. I found in your book, you're not trying to. You're just telling, you're explaining what it is. You're not trying to put anything over. I noticed in your book as well. You're just telling it as it is, and then it's if someone. I mean, have you the people? I know you do readings as well, Marie, and you've done that. I mean, this kind of past lives and future lives, has it altered any in your time you've been doing it? Has it altered anybody's thought pattern? Where they think, oh my God, I was this in a past life, have they altered their life by it, or has it been a life changer? Well, they said, oh yeah, whatever, I'm not gonna, what it is.
I think people resonate with some things that are said, and it kind of explains who they are and why they behave in particular ways. So I think they kind of resonate with it, and they say, oh, I behaved like that because of a certain planet in a certain house. And we'll have a look at yours chart in a moment, Andy.
Can Lee go first?
Who wants to go first then?
Lee can go first. He's put his hand up, hasn't he?
Yeah, well.
I don't mind. You want to go first.
No.
Right.
Yeah, Lee can go first, Maria.
I mean, like I say, astrology. I've never been a big fan of it. I've never really understood the fascination with it. I can't say I've really looked into it.
Yeah.
But it's one of them things where I hear people talk about it, and people really, like I say, resonate with it and live their lives almost by it. So. I've never gone that deep, but it's always made me curious.
I think it's like you get the ones in the papers and your stars and it's like people look at that, don't know.
Well, it's not
we
so much
used to get them years ago, didn't they, with GMTV and Russell Grant came on. Oh, you used to put a really great performance up. If you're Sagittarius and you're down there or something.
It's not so much that.
Kind of hooked
It's
on
the fact that this
know.
has been going on now for so long.
Of course it has. Yeah.
Then you sort of have to imagine that people are getting results, otherwise they wouldn't continue to use it.
And it was global, because when we look to one planet, say Mercury, for example, Mercury has a different name, but it means the same in all different cultures. Mm-hmm. So for the ancient Celts, it would have been called Lug. To the Greeks, it was Hermes. To the Egyptians, Thoth. That's Mercury, always meaning communication, quite intellectual, magician skill. So, it's like it was known throughout the ancient world. It didn't matter where you came from, you would know that Mercury in the heavens meant that. So that's how the ancient astrologers would have the same thing, just a different name, but the meaning always meant the same thing. So we've inherited a system of astrology that goes back to ancient times and ancient sources, starting with Babylon, Sumer, ancient Egypt, and then Claudius Ptolemy, where I've drawn upon, because what I like going back to source. If one astrologer said that, well, who said that to begin with? So I've always gone all the way back to source, and I even own a copy of Tetrabiblos. It's still going now. To this day, it's the most prized astrology book. So to cast a Druidic soul star chart to ascertain your past and future, I need your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth, which, you both kindly gave me,
Yep.
so I could cast your chart. And Lee's going to go first.
Go on, then.
I mean, I'm excited. I am excited. I must
Go on,
admit.
then. Yeah, great.
In for Pam. Again, Lee, you've got quite an interesting chart because you've got quite a few planets in the top of the soul star chart and in the bottom. Now, the great thing about Druidic soul star astrology is you don't have to be an astrologer to understand it. It's that simple.
That's good.
You don't need to be an astrologer to even cast a chart. So, if you get the book, don't think, I've got to be an astrologer. You really don't. It's just very key words that that we use in it. So in your chart, you have a lot of planets at the top of your chart and a lot of planets at the bottom. Yeah. So they fill up certain what's called astrological houses. Now, when I looked at yours, I noticed you've got a few of those planets in the bottom of your chart, which represents your home, your family life, and maybe soul groups. So when we come to your chart, you have, for instance, you've got Mars, Saturn, and Pluto in the 4th house, retrograde. Now, what retrograde means is viewed from Earth, from a geocentric point of view, some of the planets appear to go backwards in the heavens. They don't. They're always going around an ecliptic orbit. But it's an optical illusion, like from a geocentric point of view. So some of your planets are going backwards. Okay. So that means there's a kind of a lot of karma associated with retrograde motion. So we're going to start with Pluto because that's a very distant past life. And it's a distant past life because Pluto's a very distant planet. Mm-hmm. It's been reduced to a planetoid by astronomers these days, but it's a planet nonetheless that was only recently discovered in the 1930s. So Pluto represents in a past life you were associated with a family group that was very strict, possibly overbearing, and you felt really in this past life that you were being dominated or controlled. Yeah. So in this life, that might transpire as you like, to a certain degree, a lot of freedom. You might not like being told what to do by your parents. If your parents became strict, you'd probably want to not necessarily rebel against it, but kind of put a distance between you. You don't like being dominated in the home because in that past life you were probably being told what to do, very strict upbringing, probably the father. You may have incarnated all again. So for you, it's definitely about a certain degree of personal freedom in your life is important to you, and not to be manipulated or kind of controlled. So perhaps that at times you've experienced that again because the karma is involved with people being strict. Maybe your father was strict, or maybe there was some kind of break between you and your father. In this kind of past life, is saying there's some energy associated with that.
Okay.
And what do you think about that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've always had an interest in Pluto. I don't know where that comes from, but yeah, I think the authority has always been a bit of a bugbear of mine. I've got the sack a few times because of that situation.
You don't take no shit.
No. So, yeah. I mean, that might play into it, and I never really understood why. It's just, when you sit down in the cold light of day and you wonder why, and it just comes from somewhere. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Well, you see, according to this sort of, law on astrology, it's saying it's because, in a past life, you felt that you were being told what to do and controlled. So in this life, you would not want that, or you would kind of rebel against it. But so that was a kind of harsh beginning to your kind of soul history, because that's being dominated by someone. But then in another incarnation, incidentally, that was as a male, and another incarnation as a male, this time as the sun. And again, the sun links us to our family. The sun and the moon do link us to our family. So there is karma between you and male members of your family. because the sun has always been seen as, male, by most cultures. So you've got the Sun, Mercury, and Venus at a very high point in your chart, called the 10th house in Soul Star, and this is where I think your positive karma comes in. Because with Mercury, and we mentioned Mercury earlier, Mercury's all about communication. It's quite intelligent. It likes writing. It likes technology to a certain degree, the kind of modern side of Mercury, as indeed Uranus rules computers. But here, Mercury is about saying to you, in one past life, you were definitely good at writing. You were good at speaking. You could even teach or convey your message very clearly to others. So I think you may have been like a scribe, or you were quite well educated for that time in this past life. So today you might have inherited certain spiritual traits, like the ability to want to communicate successfully, to even write. I think you have writing skills, that you've inherited, to put things across. So I see, and also as a teacher, a lot of teachers have Mercury in the 10th house, because they can show people what to do very clearly. Yeah, so I think you've got some inherited gifts there with writing and communication skills. So maybe it was a scribe, at a kind of ancient library, or within a kind of a monastic community, or something like that. So I see that as a kind of really good inheritance. And with the sun very close, that's also a good influence, saying that you really do, in this past life with the sun, had strong leadership qualities. Yeah, you could organize quite well, you could lead quite well. So I think, again, you've inherited in your spiritual heritage the ability to write and be an effective communicator with Mercury, and also leadership qualities with the sun. And it's interesting that you said earlier that you've gone through a few jobs, because when the sun's in the 10th house, self-employment suits them, because they can work out their own day, they can organize themselves. So I would think you could shine quite bright as being self-employed. And being able to organize and have leadership skills, and also that's quite good karma. But again, links to the family. There's a soul family group link for you on the male bloodline. So have you got any interest in writing or anything like that?
Songs. When obviously in a few bands, I predominantly write the lyrics for the songs.
There you go.
And I've always done that. But I mean, if you had to ask me key traits, if you like, I would put leadership as probably maybe third or second on the list there. I mean, you know this from work.
Yeah, of course do. Yeah, yeah.
But I'm always
the first one to talk up, to stand up and say whatever.
Yeah.
If it's bugging you, he'll say it.
Yeah.
If it's annoying you, he'll say it.
And I do have I don't know how to phrase it really, but I am sort of a leader, if you like, and it sounds a bit weird to say that.
Well, it's you want to say, look, this is what they're doing is crap. Come follow me, and let's do it this way. Let's put the keys on the table, and down tools, basically. And it's if the others would follow, wouldn't they? So.
Because these are strong traits, because the whole idea behind this sort of past life astrology is that the chart will never describe all of your past lives. I mean, that's impossible, because the soul has incarnated so many times. But it's pointing to particular traits and particular past lives that have significance for you today. Do you see what I mean? That's what I'm saying. So you can draw upon, your leadership skills, because you were very effective in a past life. That's what I'm saying, so that's spiritual inheritance. And when we come to another planet, this time it's a female, because it's Venus. And Venus has always been seen throughout the ancient world, from Aphrodite, Isis, that's the kind of goddess persona that Venus has. It's just the, Roman word. So in this past life, you were actually very kind and very affectionate, and you were learning really in this past life about getting in touch with your emotions, yeah? And when Venus is quite prominent in a soul star chart, it represents that relationships are very important to the person. You know, Venus wants to be affectionate, Venus wants to love. So in this past life, you probably found your soul partner. You know, you had a very deep bond with somebody and felt, you know, that you'd really found love. So because relationships were important in that past life, again, when we look at, you know, today and how that could influence us, I would imagine that, you know, when you do split up with people and you've had a relationship, it really does take you some sort of time to get over that, because, you know, that you've always forged deep bonds since this past life with emotional relationships. And you feel that, you know, when you are in a relationship, you're bonded very strongly to that person. So it could be for you, you actually recognize who you like and who you dislike quite instinctively at times, especially with, you know, partners, you know, girlfriends, you know, wives, that sort of thing. So I think that's drawn from that past life where relationships were very important to you, and I think you found your soul partner.
Okay.
That's what I mean. I said I don't know what Lee's going to make of his chart.
I think no, I think that you know, where I can, do I like this person, don't I like this person, that's pretty instinctive. I'll give you that. And and it's sort of like, if I've made a decision on a person, whether that's, you know, a friend or whatever, that I don't really waver from that. So it's like sort of first impression, and I make my judgment, and that's it. I never really go back to it. But I don't know. I think the emotional side of it, I'm not really keyed into that as much. Because I mean, I don't know what you want to say here, but especially with the ladies side of things, normally it's yeah, normally
Yin and yang, yeah.
yeah, normally I don't speak to them afterwards. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that
Well, that's not emotions. That's. I mean, it's
no, I mean that, like forging like a bond, if you like. But obviously, when it comes to relationships, that's different. But they get, like you say, like it took me a long time to get over people, and I never really found that in this life anyway. That's never been a real issue for me. I think you know, normally if people walk out the door, I don't really give it a second thought.
Wow, yeah, okay. Well, that obviously looks like you've gone through a lot of stuff there, because yeah, but it does nonetheless, you know, Venus in that place mean that relationships, when you are in a relationship, it should be very, you know, important to you. And also you've got Mars in a very prominent position, and this gives you a very powerful will. So in this past life, you were a male. So you have experienced feminine energies before, you know, love and soul kind of connections. You really have. And in this past life, you were a male, but this time you had a very powerful will, very determined to do whatever it was you wanted to do. And you were able to transform your life probably around the age of sort of 30, 35. It's a significant time in astrology to do with Saturn. So it was almost like at one point in this past life, you were kind of a bit drifty, you know, doing this and then doing that. And then suddenly around the age of 30, 35, you thought, I really want to do something. And you applied your will and your strength and determination. And you were very successful. So it was really about trying to find out who you were in this past life. Do you see what I mean? Because you, the first part, you didn't know, and then suddenly, bingo, moment, eureka moment, and you did, and you went on to be quite successful. So if there's any influence in this incarnation, one interpretation could be about applying focus to whatever it was you wanted to do and achieve. And if you did, with this kind of trace memory in your soul, then you should be able to apply that to get what you want in this incarnation, you know, positively expressed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel you've got a good, strong willpower, or not really?
No, I do. I think, and like I say, what am I now? Am I 34? 34?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Should know your birthday.
So
Have you?
I would say, like, since obviously turning 30, probably over 30, just, you know, turning 30 onwards, I've sort of, I sort of know where I want to go now. Before that, you know, I wasn't really sure. Never really gave it much thought, to be honest with you. And then, obviously, since turning 30, I think that's changed. So I'd kind of know where I want to go now and what I want to do. And obviously, had the kids and stuff like that. You know, that was a decision that was made at that point. So that was a turning point for sure.
Well, I think, you know, with that kind of soul memory, you know, you could be very successful, especially with the sun, the leadership qualities, and applying Mercury. These are your positive spiritual traits. And even though you didn't resonate with the female incarnation and that kind of deep emotional side, I think that's there in your soul as well. It would be my take on it, you know. But if we have a look to the future, I look to what's called really strong transits. Now, what's a transit? It's not a van.
Yeah.
To begin with, yeah.
Let's get out of the way. It's not a van.
That's because honestly, there's normally the one-liner, so I get that in now. Yeah. So anyway, what a transit is, it's comparing the planets today to where they were in your birth chart, and if they make a relationship, like very close to one another, opposite each other, it's called an opposition, or if they're 60 degrees away, it's called a sextile, 120 degrees, it's called a trine, and they're kind of planets' relationships. Do you see what I mean in the heavens?
Yep.
So we can compare the heavens today to your chart. The interesting thing is, from June to December, so you're heading for this transit energy now, okay? But it will lastly up to 2 years. Yeah, this is a slow transit because it's to do with Pluto. Yeah. Now, Pluto, like I said, is a very distant planet, and it's a very small planet, but it's very powerful. And the positive side of Pluto is it's the transformer, it's the alchemist. It can transmute lead into gold. It can transmute anything it wants to, because a bit like your Mars past life, Pluto can apply its will and direction to be successful. Well, Pluto is in your ascendant, and your ascendant was the constellation that was rising at the time of your birth. So if you imagine, Pluto is 180 degrees away from that sensitive point. So I foresee in the next 2 years, so we'll have to meet up and discuss how it's going. Yeah, this would be good on radio. That I think your whole life is going to start changing. Yeah, I think, you know, you're going to probably change your work, how you're applying work. You've probably, maybe even now, starting thinking of new ideas, new things may come into your life, new projects, and anything that you want to change within the next 2 years should be quite easy to do. Because what I mean, if you wanted to change direction and or learn something and bring this into your life, this is the time to do it within the next 2 years. And I really do feel, Lee, that you're going to look back in 2 years' time and think, oh, why didn't I do that sooner? Because the changes that are going to come in can be very positive, and they can lead and open doorways. So any opportunities that come your way, really do take them, you know, because this is a time of change and transition. And in a way, what Pluto is doing, because, you know, you're not going to get this aspect for another 200 and something years, because then you're not going to be here, because Pluto takes so long to go around the zodiac. So when we have Plutonian transits, we can change. Sometimes we change our look, we change our attitudes. Do you see what I mean? Things gradually change with Pluto. So that's what I mean. In 2 years' time, you may even change a bit how you look, or your attitudes will change. and relationships may even change. They could become deeper. The working relationships could change. New influences could come in. It's really about working with what you want to change on your inner self. You're in harmony with the universal energies of your chart. So yeah, I think good changes are coming up, and be the alchemist, change your lead into gold. This is the energy that is being applied over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll see you in 2 years.
Yeah. We'll be in Hawaii then, won't we?
Yeah.
We'll be Hawaii.
Yeah.
We're going to be on stage.
I'll fly
there.
you out to Barbados.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Don't forget me then, will you?
No, you're the work change.
Yeah, I suppose I'll be. I'll be the worker. So.
But no,
Right. So just to recap, looking back on your chart, you've got some really good traits, and even though you did have one kind of negative past life where you were dominated in the home, you don't like control and being told what to do. I think that served to make you more independent. Your soul more independent. So I think even that was a good experience. So that was the most significant planets in your chart.
okay, cool.
Cool. Huh?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So shall I move on to Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me mine, please, Maria. See
Yeah.
what
Well,
I've got coming.
yeah, I've done some transits for you as well, so that's really positive. Now, when I looked at your chart, you had Neptune in a very strong position. You've got Neptune in the fourth house in your soul star chart. Now, this is really interesting because it literally links you to a blood and soul group linked to Atlantis.
Right.
Why Atlantis? Yeah. Well, when Plato, he was the only person that really, well, he was the first person to record Atlantis. That's where source is, it's Plato. And Plato said that the metropolis, the city of Atlantis, had right at the center a shrine to Neptune. So Neptune was very important to the Atlantean people. So when we have Neptune in the chart, it can link to Atlantis through, Plato's account. So in this past life, it's really interesting because Lee is the kind of, practical, pragmatic, and not, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you're very kind of left brain, and you're kind of more open and sensitive, etc. Then this shows in your chart, because with Neptune always represents somebody that is sensitive and they're psychic. You probably got taught the psychic arts in Atlantis. Now, in the Atlantean temples, if we're to believe what people like Edgar Cayce say, then, they were underground to some respect. So there's a part of you which, can really retreat from the world and kind of go deep into yourself, like you did in Atlantean times. And maybe that influenced you in this life when you grew up to kind of need time to be by yourself, and to kind of not withdraw necessarily, but reflect, needing that time to reflect. Also, when people have a strong Neptune, you can literally be like a psychic sponge. Yeah, you can soak up people's energies and soak up, kind of environmental energies of where you are, which is great on the one hand, because that can make you, very kind of mediumship skills of being born in this past life. But it can also mean you can take on people's emotions a bit too much. You see what I mean? Because you're absorbing their energies. The intriguing thing about Neptune in the fourth house, which astrologers have said since the dawn of time, is that it often means a family secret in some way that is connected to your incarnation now. So I don't know, what that is, but that's astrological law, that's come down to us. So there may be some kind of secrets in your family. So from that past life, I really do see you being connected to a kind of spiritual group, a soul group from Atlantis, learning the psychic arts, but away from public eye. And that's why possibly from time to time now you just need time to kind of reflect and maybe be by yourself. So yeah, I think you've got mediumship skills from Neptune in this past life. Sometimes people are clairvoyant, clairaudient with a strong Neptune, for example.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was very young, I always kept in my bedroom. I didn't want to go out and do what the little boys did, but going out playing football, playing the fields. I was stuck in my house, in my bedroom with a book. I didn't really, mingle until later on, later on in my years. But when I was little, my mum said, you didn't really. I like to be by myself. I didn't want to do other stuff. She used to pull me out of the bedroom just to get me out. I like to be
Yeah.
myself with my own thoughts then. So,
Yeah, I think that's because you're in temple space. You were kind of away from the public eye, So there's definitely times you do need the time to reflect.
so
You
when I
know,
was when I was seeing them faces on the wall, then Maria, could they be maybe it's from Atlantis? Because there's all female. There was all female. There's no males there. I remember that very distinctively. There's all female faces on the wall. No male, but they was really kind and. But it's strange because I felt like I knew them. I wasn't frightened, but possibly.
it could well be, Atlantean energy for those that feel connected to Atlantis. Do feel as well. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Andy, when they meet another member of their soul group, because you come from a spiritual temple Atlantean soul group,
Mm.
you feel connections quite quickly.
Yeah.
If there's spiritual connections with people, that could come across, oh, I know you. It feels like I've known you forever. So that you might experience that. So I think that's where you've got a lot of psychic energy, and maybe you were shy when you were growing up, but also a sense of being connected to nature, because
Absolutely.
in Atlantis there was so many beautiful irrigated fields. This is Plato's description, not.
Mm.
He described Atlantis as being beautiful, having the most fertile fields, the most fragrant flowers. Everything was bejeweled, their temple spaces. So, and it was irrigated with, fresh water. So they were very, lush.
Mm.
So there's always that connection with nature with Atlantean soul groups.
Yeah, yeah, I love nature. Always have done. Absolutely. Yeah,
True,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really good. So so I think born from that, you would do well to kind of work in kind of spiritual groups, because that goes back to when you were in Atlantis working with people, admittedly away from public eye, but working together. So I could see you working really well with like a spiritual team.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, being around others and exploring, the psychic arts, so to speak, which should come quite, naturally to you.
Yeah,
So
well,
but then in another,
I did a couple of.
sorry,
I'd worked in a couple of spiritual groups, and I found it much easier than with a couple of people. The more people, the better, because you've got more energy, so you've got more to go on. You've got more insight. The more people, the better. The more energy to use, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed doing that. Hopefully one day I can go back to it again.
I think working in that kind of environment for you, Andy, you just would, find it so
Yeah,
natural, because
yeah,
it's
it
a
does.
part of
Yeah,
your
yeah,
soul. And you've done that before. So in that past life was about, being spiritual and learning the psychic arts. But you've got Saturn in a very prominent position as well. And the astrologers, since time immemorial, have called Saturn the Great Malefic. And, the Christians would say Satan, I mean, it's not
mm,
as bad as that. But it does bring testing energies into our lives, Saturn. Yeah.
yeah,
It kind of teaches us responsibility. It teaches us hardship. It teaches us to grow that way. So you had this really kind of spiritual life where you weren't used to being around that many people. You were kind of away from the public eye. And then your soul really chose to take on a very harsh life.
yeah,
Yeah. And in this life, you could have even been like forced to work, forced to be in a slave situation where you had to work really hard, because Saturn in this sector represents hard work, hard graft. Yeah. So in this past life, I think that you were probably exploited. You were made to work long and laborious hours. You didn't get kind of any gratification for anything that you did. So in this past life, I really think that you wouldn't do well for working hard and long hours. It would stress you out.
Yeah, yeah.
So you would prefer a more like laid back. You don't work hard again. You did that in that past. I'm not saying that you don't work hard, but I mean in a labor, laborious situation. So for you in this incarnation, if you did overwork, you're going to become stressed. You could become ill. You may have even got some kind of like psychic residue to do with the shoulders or the back, because you were constantly working and moving. Do you see what I mean? So sometimes you can have a build-up of psychic residue in those areas. So really, you did two extreme things, your soul. Your soul said, I'm going to be really kind of away from things here, learning the psychic arts, and then bang, learning the lesson of hard work for no gratification. So in this, I think part of your spiritual heritage is you, a bit like Lee, you don't really want to be told what to do, when to work. You want now your freedom, because you've done all of that before, and you don't want to go back to being told what to do and becoming the slave again and being told this is how it should be.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, yeah.
I'm 52 now, and I just want to retire. That's it. I just want to. I do want to retire and just drift away and go to see some beautiful places and just be me and meet some.
You definitely don't like
people.
working long hours, do you?
Well, you don't work long hours, be honestly, really. The baby rounds you get, mate. But, mind you, we do, don't we? We do.
Yeah.
We work till we finish, don't we?
50 hours a week.
Yeah, 50 hours a week. We drive all over the country, don't we? So, you know, and we finish when we finish, and that's it.
And he does get stressed out.
Oh,
I can testify to
a bit
that.
of a road rage here and there, that's all, you know. But, no, it's great. I mean, I'm always down your neck of the woods as well, Murray, down at Swindon, around that area, and I don't mind Swindon, but once I get out to the outskirts and into the countryside, I feel fantastic. Because I hate being in cities, hate being in towns. I just got to put my foot down and get out, because I can't stand the towns, the cities. You know what I mean? They're just, it's low frequency, and I love working in little villages and that, but hate cities. But again, never know. One day I might retire, mate. I might get retired and go and go holiday on Hawaii and.
Let's get there. Well, let's find out.
Yeah, okay. Let's have a look. Yeah, well.
Yeah. Well, so that in that past life, it was really, that was quite a lot for a soul to take on, because you weren't on a soul level used to being told what to do. You were kind of more the spiritual. And in this past life, we have Mars in a very strong position, and it was a male incarnation. Oh, incidentally, in Atlantis, you were probably female. I think that's again very sensitive. For sure, and Saturn, you would have been a male in that life, and in this past life, you would have been a male also, because it's Mars, and Mars has always been depicted as a male. So in this past life, you really wanted to learn about kind of combining spirituality, that sensitive side, with you to family life. Yeah. So in a way, you kind of wanted to have a family and, have all of the 2.2 kids in this incarnation and everything. But that didn't work out. You ended up being single again. Yeah. So there was a kind of, in this past life, a bit of a kind of resonance with relationships. Do I, don't I? And so I don't know how you feel with that today, but with Mars in that position sometimes means breakups, not feeling understood sometimes. Do you see what I mean? Or feeling misunderstood in some way. So after you kind of had a breakup with a relationship, in all probability, you then went to in a kind of like combat situation, because Mars is often associated in this placement with war. Yeah. Especially in old style astrology. And because it was kind of a psychic side, you're probably quite using your intuition. And quite a few people have said with these placements with Neptune and with Mars, that you could probably go into an area that's had conflict, like say, for example, I put you on a hilltop near here that's had a battle with the Saxons and King Arthur, for argument's sake, then I think you could tune in to past like conflicts that have happened in the past, be that to do with war, be that to do with kind of any type of conflict in energy.
Yeah.
Because you know, even kind of like hearing distant battles or something like that, because that's where you put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know a timeline for that, you know, but it was definitely to do with war and combat. And you probably in that past life died quite suddenly, because Mars in the 8th house, with quite close to another planet called Uranus, can often mean like a sudden death. So, you know, with Mars, if there is a sudden death to do with a war, conflict in situation, you often have a birthmark that depicts where, you know, like for argument's sake, a spear went into you or whatever.
Yeah.
So quite often, past life regression therapists would say, you know, look for birthmarks. They can represent trauma to the physical body born in a past life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You got any of them?
Yeah, I've got one just in my thigh here. Just down my thigh. Ish.
What was it?
Well,
What was pointing at?
No, I'm saying, good job they missed. You know, could be more painful. Man, depends how quick my death was. You know what I mean? I hope I didn't linger too long. Yeah, but it's just near my thigh here. That's, you know, I shouldn't really be saying this really, but yeah, yeah. Again, it's yeah. I hear sounds. You know, if I can go out, I hear sounds. I hear voices sometimes. I have all my life. You know, and it's something I like to, eventually I want to do is just to go and wander and, you know, go in nature and wander, and you can, you know, sometimes pick them up. You know, there's nothing better than chucking your shoes off, chucking your socks off, and then, you know, grounding yourself, and, you know, for the day. It's beautiful. It's, other people,
definitely.
you know, people have forgotten how to do it, but yeah, it's yeah, but it's
we have a disconnect. A lot of people have a disconnect with nature today and don't even ground and kick off their shoes. And I would say, you know, you've got that from Atlantis.
I love connecting. It's you just get that feel. You get that. I don't know. It's a tingling, or whatever. It's a knowing. It's tingling, but it's you know, to just connect. You know, but because you've got so many, you know, work related in your head, and you've got the bills, and you've got this and that, you know, it's hard to, you know, until one day I retire and I'm okay, then I will do. I am determined, and I will. It's going to be whenever, but I will do. You know, what I've always wanted to do is go and travel and see people, and you know, just do what I want to do. Just, you know, I'm not going to be caged in and I just want to explore. You know, that's it. Explore and meet incredible people, and you're the same, aren't you? You're exactly the same. So what you want to do that as well, don't you? You know, how long can they prison us for? I don't know.
I know it's you know, a lot of people do need their freedom. So we're going to come to another planet, then we'll look to the future.
Okay.
Because you've got the moon in the second sector of your soul star chart, which, unlike Lee, in Lee's chart he had the sun, which linked to the males in your line, you know, your father, for good or for bad, you know, there is karmic energy there. Whereas for you, it's the female bloodline, the moon, which is always deemed feminine. Yeah. So, so in this past life, there is definitely karma between your mother, your sister, your wife, or a strong female figure in your life. The same with Lee, it could be a strong male friend or an uncle. Do you see what I mean? It's all about that line. And again, in this past life, you all incarnated together, you know, as females. And there was this really strong bond, because even in like, you know, modern day astrology, the moon always represents the mother, emotions. It connects us to where we live, to our families. You know, it's a very strong connection. So I see that there's a connection, a karmic connection between all of the females in your bloodline. There's also always been, Andy, a psychic kind of connection between the females in your family going back generation after generation after generation.
Yeah.
So I would even say that, you know, your grandmother may not have told you, for example, but she would have been psychics. Do you see what I mean? On
Yep.
both sides of the family. So, because it's a kind of karmic energy. So I think not only did you get your kind of sensitivity from an experience in Atlantis in temple space, but through the female bloodline. So I can see you like in this past life to be quite family orientated, liking to be around your mother and family members and children. Uh, and also, even learning the things about herbs and healing,
Yep.
things that, a kind of mother naturally wants to do to heal children. Do you see what I mean? So I think there's a healing side to you with this moon placement as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a healer as well. Just I love and it's I've always herbs as well. They fascinated me in that, but healing just something it comes to do. It's, if someone's poorly, you send them. I mean, people want to touch people and hands on. I'm not. I can be if I wanted to be, but I think it's more personal and more intent if you can send the thoughts. Because I think they go quicker, and it's intention here. So yeah, and yeah, I love healing. I love sending healing to the world, not just to people, to the world as well. So that side to me as well is that side, that caring. If I mean, if I see an animal on the road injured or dead, it affects me. If I see some, a tree cut down, it affects me. It does. It just affects. It's you live in a lunatic asylum, I'm afraid, and the crazies run the show. And to cut down a tree, cut down something, and if I'm on a country road, you'll be the same. If you're on a country road, you do 25, 30 miles an hour. Because something's going to go across, but you see all dead animals. Anyway, that's another story. But yeah, I have got that side to me, Maria, of that caring, that healing side. Where that's me. That's my nature. That's it. I can't change who I am. That's it. So yeah, that's not who I am. And I send me healing. I still when I had my study, I used to sit in my chair, think of a person, had a photograph, and I think it's happened 3 times. I set my thoughts, I'm healing, I'm my power from my gut, and these people have got better. They got well. Maybe not from me. I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but there's a couple of times these people have made a remarkable recovery. Just by me. Well, not by me, but others as well, guides as well. Their guides as well have done this as well. But it's something I like doing, and I am a kind of private person in that way. But again, you've still got to work in this one life, haven't you? You've still got to do what you got to do on a daily basis. So, yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Spot on.
Yeah, well, like you say, Andy, if our thoughts do go fast, and there's energy behind thought, isn't there? So, intent is, really applied there. Well, when we have a look at your future transits, you've got 2 that really stand out. And one is going to probably be kicking in about now and way up to the end of the year.
Right.
Especially it peaks around about the 25th of September. So that's around about the time of the equinox, autumn equinox. But you've got, and you can, Google them, because yours is, if you ever want to Google it, yours is Pluto opposition the ascendant, Lee, and yours, Andy, is a Jupiter conjunct Neptune, and Neptune is one of your planets in your soul star, so this is going to be strong for you, like you have Pluto in your chart, so your Pluto transit is going to be strong for you. And when these 2 planets come together, Jupiter and Neptune, it's a massive spiritual advancement. It's a spiritual awakening all over again. So I really foresee in the near future, peaking around September, your intuition will peak up. You'll become more sensitive. People that have experienced this have said, in blogs and things, that they've even started to see auras very, very clearly and start to see beyond the ethers. So it's a very spiritual transit, and I really think this is going to bring back a kind of your Atlantean memories even of when you were taught the psychic arts there, because it's all kind of connected. So I think you're going to grow spiritually speaking. I think you're going to remember your kind of Atlantean past and kind of grow in the psychic arts. So that's going to increase your sensitivity. then that's a good side of it. But, you know, when one's sensitivity is being increased, it means you can become at times a little bit oversensitive. You know, somebody could say something in passing and really not mean it, and you're going to be hypersensitive. Do you see what I mean? To everything outside yourself. So, you know, if somebody does say anything, try not to take too much an offence. You're just very, very heightened during that time. So I think it's almost like you're going to grow on a big level there. Also, for next year coming up, in the future, this is going to be quite an important transit. And, you know, again, Google it after this show. You've got Uranus conjunct the MC. Now, the MC in astrology means what was right above you at the time of your birth, right at the zenith in the heavens, as astronomers would call it. It's called the mid-heaven. So why they called it MC, ancient astrologers, I don't know. It should be MH, mid-heaven. Anyway, we go with ancient astrological terminology. So this can, again, a bit like what Lee's going to experience with the change that Pluto's going to bring. You're going to have changes maybe to do with work coming up, Andy, as well. There could be striking changes coming up where it's almost like you'll be in the right place at the right time. This is a positive transit for change, yeah. It's 2 years. These are slow-moving planets. They're not going to go bingo overnight. So it's in the 2-year time. And again, it can change and transform where you work. It can change friends. You might find new influences coming into your life, and you'll find them quite inspirational. The great thing about Uranus in this position, it can bring luck from out of the blue, unexpected gains. So it's considered a very positive transit. And if you wanted to change your career during the next 2 years, the energies of the kind of universe, you know, your energies, they're coming together and saying, I do want change. So I think you could even go on to kind of do some more traveling within the next 2 years. I see that could come in. But more than that, I think you're going to be in the right place at the right time to benefit from some opportunities. So looking at you both, it's quite interesting that in a way you kind of have these similar transits where you're both going to be changing and maybe moving on. And again, you know, you'll be able to, I think, have more freedom with Uranus, because Uranus, again, Andy, really doesn't like being told what to do. Uranus is bohemian, it's the maverick of astrology. You know, it doesn't like 9 to 5 and being told what to do. So maybe both of you are going to be getting more in sort of touch with who you want to be in the future. Do you see what I mean? And initiating these changes where you will have more freedom, possibly, and the ability to be more who you are.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely, absolutely, spot on.
I feel that. To some extent. So.
I think. Well, we've been talking. What we've always been said. Oh, we love to go here and go there and go to that place and visit that place and see these people. You know, I really, you know, put to my mind that I want to, you know, travel, to go and see places and meet other people, because that's, you know, that's what we want to do. You know, so it's not into not to a 9 to 5 job and, you know, do this, pay the bills and once a week and that. No. I think that time's coming, Maria, where, you know, hopefully, if you say what you're saying, and I think it is true, is I'm going to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And then someone will come up and will offer, and I'll take it. I'll definitely take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's known as, you know, to be unexpected, good changes that come. So, the key thing with the Uranus conjunct the MC, the midheaven, is, you know, it will come out of the blue when you least expect it, but be aware of opportunities, a bit like Lee's as well. You've got to be aware of the opportunities to take them fast. Yeah? Because of the thing about these two transits for you both, it's about recognizing and then having the kind of sense, I can change, because this is all about change. Staying the same under these transits won't cut it. Because astrologers have always said it's choice or coercion. The planets will teach you to grow and expand by not doing the same old thing. Do you hear what I'm saying? And this is what these two planets are. They're great teachers that can teach you to get out of your comfort zone and experience something different. And Uranus loves the different. It loves the maverick. It loves the bohemian. And same with Pluto. It's got that strong will, but yours is more about alchemy, about sort of transforming the old into the new, or what you don't want into something else. So, and it's interesting. You're both under these 2-year transits that can initiate these changes, provided you spot the opportunities. Is the key to that.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just take every day as it comes, and something comes up, that's it. So
grab it.
Absolutely, grab it. Yeah, absolutely. 2 years. Because we could be doing lectures,
Because you always look back, don't you? You always see missed opportunities. So
yeah.
Going forward, I think it's something to really keep an eye out for, isn't it? But yeah, fantastic. It was not as bad as I thought, actually.
Oh, thanks, Lee.
Well, I was really looking forward to it because me and Murray are on the same wavelength, so yeah, it's fantastic. Again, it's. I was speaking to my friend in London the other day, Les, and we was talking about the changes that are coming now, what's happening, and I'm really hoping that the changes will be positive. But if you look at if you look out your window now, and it's not, the change is coming quick and fast now. So it's some people will adapt, somebody won't, some won't, will they? So it's going to be I think it's going to be a big change. But not yet. I don't think it's going to be yet. I think there's a lot of time yet for people to waking up and hopefully, find out what's going on. All they've got to do is stick their head out the window and look and see what's going on in the back garden instead of.
But don't do that if you're on a bus.
Well, no. I mean that. I'm saying, go and look and see what's really going out there. Don't take it what the media's telling you and the circus, and really find out what's really going on. And really would.
Fantastic, fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating.
So, do you want to tell people where they can find your book? Because I'm sure people are going to
definitely
be interested in it after hearing this.
Yeah, sure. You can find Druidic Soul Star Astrology to start calculating your own charts, your own past lives on my websites, which are esotericcollege.com and the Avebury Experience.co.uk, or you could buy it on Amazon. And it's also an ebook, on Amazon as well. So you could go through Amazon, or, why have Amazon get all of the money when the authors could get some more, because they take commission and things. So I would advise to go through the website. And like I said at the start of the show, we're planning to have software so that you can instantly see it at a glance, past lives with a brief interpretation, drawn of, like I said, from the get-go, from very historical sources that have been renowned to be accurate about planetary placements. So that's what we've done with the book. It's about kind of taking the traditional and applying it to a kind of new branch of astrology, and it was quite exciting. And I love doing people's charts, and I'm also open for readings. You can have a reading with me. You can just book in at esotericcollege.com or through the Avebury Experience.co.uk.
Fantastic,
great stuff.
Well, I'll definitely be saying that, and I'll have people to go and see you because you're fascinating. You're a lovely lady, and again, it's great talking to you. And said the book, I love the book. I'm still reading it. I'm trying to. Well, I want to try and find. I know you've been telling in there. I'm trying to find my own bits in there now, so I'm going to try and see where I'm going to go next. But I know obviously what's going to be the next chapter. Let's wait and see.
Well, it's coming.
It's coming. Yeah. So, you can feel it, can't you? You can feel
indeed.
The energy coming. So.
Well, yeah, like I say, just to end with, in 2 years' time, because you're both experiencing long duration transits, and I really do feel in a couple of years' time you're going to look back and say, why didn't I do whatever it is earlier? Do you see what I mean? It's going to you're going to look back and it will bring in changes. And change can sometimes be good and exciting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
today.
you, Maria. Really.
Thank you very much for doing that. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah, thank you very
it's
much.
an undertaking. So
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
grateful.
All right then, guys. Well, thanks for having me, and stay in touch. And thanks
Definitely.
for today.
Definitely. Hopefully we can maybe have a meet up again one time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Definitely.
definitely, because I think there's more places to explore out there. Definitely.
Indeed.
Certainly is.
Thank you. Thanks a
All
lot,
right,
Maria.
guys. I'm going to love you and leave you.
Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.